Hey everybody. So, I have this huge issue with what's going on with the ACC right now. Okay? So, obviously everybody knows the freaking realignment that's been going on, and it's very frustrating, the inaction and ineptitude of the ACC that I've watched not only just over the past couple weeks, but since this whole freaking thing began in the first place. Okay? The ACC, for those of you that don't know, is looking at adding Stanford and California and SMU, okay, which I'll get to that in a minute. But the ACC, throughout this entire realignment process, has not done a single thing that they should be doing that could improve the state of the conference at all. It has been blunder after blunder, and, well, honestly, not even blundering, just nothing. Nothing. The ACC's done nothing. And it's killing the conference. And they think that they can just sit on the grant of rights and that none of this is urgent, and that they can afford to have some of these things fall through. Well, they can't. They can't. From the very beginning, okay, from Texas and Oklahoma, when they announced their move to the SEC, it was this huge shockwave that sent throughout college football. It was insane. You know, the Big 12 was in danger now, losing their two best teams, and it was a complete disaster. And oh my God, what's going to happen? Like, this is unprecedented and insane that, you know, these two teams will be leaving. From that moment, the ACC should have been doing negotiations and trying to improve the state of the conference. That from that moment, we all knew that things were going to change very quickly, and if you wanted to stay alive in the world of college football realignment, then you need to get with the times. You need to adapt or die. Okay? And the ACC did nothing. They did nothing. Forget about, okay, so Texas and Oklahoma, from that moment, they should have been, they should have been on the ball about what they needed to do to stay alive, to strengthen their position within the power level of conferences, because it's very clear that it wasn't going to remain the Power 5 for long, okay? And far be it from the ACC to make some kind of move, okay? It was the SEC that started all this by taking in Oklahoma and Texas. Far be it from the ACC to be ahead of the curve in any way and steal a team from some other conference, steal the best two teams from another conference or something like that. But this happened 2 years ago, okay? Texas and Oklahoma going to the SEC. And if by some act of stupidity that you thought that was it, around the same time last year, USC and UCLA announced that they're going to the Big Ten, okay? So if you hadn't been doing anything after the Texas and Oklahoma news, that should have kicked you into gear, okay? And it didn't. It didn't. The ACC hasn't done anything since then. It's done nothing. And since USC and UCLA announcement, the ACC has now come into its own turmoil, with Clemson and FSU, announcing their move to leave, that they want to get out too. Not that they can because of the grant of rights, but they have every intention to if they can, and if they can find their way out of the freaking grant of rights, they will. And, FSU especially has been yelling from the mountaintops about how bad they want out of the ACC and how they don't think that they're being paid enough. And, well, that's its own thing, okay? Whether FSU is worth all that. Well, the fact is Clemson and FSU are the two biggest brands in the conference, okay, in the ACC conference. And if we want to keep them, we have to stay ahead of the curve. You should be doing this anyway. You should be trying to stay ahead of the curve, get your, teams paid more, because even before the Texas and Oklahoma thing, ACC teams were still making less than, the other top conferences and the other Power 5 conferences. ACC schools were not making that much compared to them. So this should have been something that was already in the works especially since we fired John Swofford and this Jim Phillips comes in, and it's like, okay, we bring in Jim Phillips in a time that is turmoil, in an unprecedented time of realignment and everything. Well, if you do nothing, you're going to lose your job. And so what do you have to lose? It's not like you've been here forever and you should be afraid of taking risks, right? So why has Jim Phillips just done nothing? I guess he thinks that the grant of rights is so rock solid that we're going to be fine until 2036. But even in that scenario, that shouldn't be what you count on, because that means the conference is just going to fall apart in 2036. Okay? Do something. Do something. Throughout this entire thing, the ACC has done nothing. Okay? From Texas and Oklahoma. Well, they leave. Well, the Big 12 for a while was the most vulnerable conference. Everybody talked about, well, what happened to the Big 12? Okay? You had Cincy, UCF, Houston open. You had all the teams from the Big 12 you could probably convince to come at that time because it was a time of panic. Well, no. The Big 12 survived because, first of all, it happened to them first. It happened to them first, which gives them an advantage. Losing your two best teams is not good, but if it kicks off this entire deal about realignment, then it would be good, I guess, to happen at first. Because if it was, if it happened to the ACC, if Clemson and FSU left first, then we would have had our pick of all the, of all the conferences, and then the Pac-12 when they fell too. So it happened to them first, the Big 12, and they acted quickly. They added UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston. And while those aren't the best teams, it did give their conference some sort of stability. Those are the three best group of 5 teams in the country. And they went ahead and added them. And they were strong. They helped shore up their conference. And at the time, well, still really don't have any real playoff contenders. But they have a lot of programs in college football that, that are solid, right? And then the Pac-12 announces that. And for a year, nothing happens. Well, for a year, Oregon and Washington were available, okay? You miss out on the Big 12 train. You miss out on the UCF, Cincinnati, Houston train. Right there. Oregon and Washington were sitting there for a year. Up until now. Up until they announced that they were going to the Big Ten a couple weeks ago. They freaking announced that. Colorado announces, whatever. Freaking Colorado. What a joke, dude. I mean, who cares about them? But, they leave. Then you've got the Pac-9 or whatever it was. Why not combine the conferences? You've got all this noise about Florida State and Clemson. You got, the best teams. You got USC, UCLA, and Colorado leaving the Pac-12. Why not merge? Okay? The ACC is just now talking about taking Pac-12 teams after they're already all gone? Are you kidding me? Oregon and Washington announced they're going to the Big Ten. Okay. Utah's still left. Arizona's are still left. There's a bunch of several good teams still left. Combined with it wouldn't have been as good with, if we didn't have Oregon and Washington, but still would have been great. It still would have been several good teams and got a good deal with the, with the TV deal or whatever. You bring in you want to bring in schools that will be a good value, that will give you negotiating power so that you can get a better TV deal. If you had taken the Pac-9, it would have been perfect. We wouldn't have even needed Notre Dame. The ACC can't even get freaking Notre Dame to join. Why didn't we get Notre Dame to join in the 2020 season? I don't understand. We had all the leverage in the world against them that season to make them join, and we didn't. We let them come into the conference for 1 year and then leave. We should have not allowed them in. They're basically a team. They're basically already a freaking ACC team. They're an ACC in every other sport besides football, and they play a bunch of ACC games. Why are they still not in here? I get that Notre Dame is difficult, and, adding them is Difficult because they freaking think they're so freaking special. Well, if we had been punctual and on top of the game, we would have been able to get Oregon and Washington and the rest of the Pac-12 into the ACC for the All-Coast Conference. I had this whole freaking video I was working on. I had this whole All-Coast Conference video I was working on last week. Well, guess what? The freaking Big 12 scoops in and grabs them all up. After Oregon and Washington announced they're leaving for the freaking Big Ten too. At that point, we still could have combined. We still could have grabbed Utah and the Arizonas, and it would have been fine. We could have grabbed the entire Pac-12, and that probably would have been great. But now the Big 12's got them all. They've got their pick of them. So the ACC is getting not sloppy seconds, but sloppy thirds. Sloppy thirds. Talking about adding Stanford and Cal. Nobody wanted them. Nobody wants them. The Big 12 didn't want them. The Big 12 will take any freaking person walking around on the street to their conference. And they didn't want Stanford and Cal. Cal's the team with the number one most debt in the country. They're a freaking dying program. What value is going to be adding them? It's not going to. This is why the ACC is going to die. This is why the ACC is going to die. Okay? The ACC is done. Florida State is going to find some way to get out of here, whether it's Saudi money or some kind of loophole in the grant of rights, or getting enough teams together to dissolve the conference, or wait until 36. Either way, the ACC is a dead man walking. A dead conference walking. And guess what? The teams in the ACC are being let down not only in that way, but like I mentioned earlier, this is the last conference that this is happening to. And it's not good. This will be probably another video I do. What is going to happen to the ACC teams when, not if, the ACC collapse. When the ACC collapses, what's going to happen to the teams in the ACC? Because Big Ten's freaking got 1 million teams in it now. SEC, they're only going to take the cream of the crop. And the freaking Big 12 is flat full. How much more is the Big 12 willing to take? How much more is the Big 10 willing to take? SEC? I don't know. But the ACC teams, every one of them, well, not every one of them. Clemson, Florida State, Miami, North Carolina, they'll probably be fine. But Syracuse, Boston College, Georgia Tech, my Jackets, we're all in trouble because of the ineptitude and the inaction of the ACC. It is unacceptable. This conference has been run horribly. It's been run horribly. If they would have put me in charge, it would have been different. Okay? But what do I know? What do I know? I'm just a freaking guy on the internet. And I don't even know what to say anymore. So here's hoping the ACC doesn't die. I'll see y'all next time.